Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm showing you an amazing Void Hunter build. This is the build that I'm going to be taking into Grandmaster Nightfalls with me. So to start with, this is a Void build, Void Hunter. For the super, I am using Shadow Shot Quiver. Shadow Shot Deadfall also works great if you're trying to do an extend DPS phase or something. And then there's also Spectral Blades. I don't use it. Um, you can use it if you're into that. Yeah. For the dodge, we are using Gambler's Dodge because that will refund our Snare Bomb. And for the grenade, we are using Vortex Grenade because overall it's just really great at killing people really fast, and you can throw it into the middle of a crowd to help with a little bit of crowd control and make the enemies all scooch together a bit. Going into the aspects, now you have a few options here. You have Trapper's Ambush. This is definitely a must-have. It's really fun to use, and having that having the ability to make your teammates invisible is really great for team-based play and playing into support, which is going to be great in higher end content. Then you have Vanishing Step. Now this one can be actually substituted for the third aspect, which is Stylus Executioner. So Vanishing Step, dodging makes you invisible. This is really great for higher end content where you just really need that extra survivability, and so it's just really easy to proc overall, very simple. Now, if you're not having issues surviving, or you just frankly don't need the dodging, then you can actually switch to Silas Executioner. You are going to be getting volatile rounds quite often with this build, and you have the ability to weaken people very easily. So Stylus Executioner is definitely a great option, especially if you're using the Gerfalcon's Hauberk exotic chestplate. I personally am using Vanishing Step though, just because the extra survivability that it offers is much better in my opinion. Now for the fragments. We are using Echo of Instability. This gives us volatile rounds every time we get a kill with that Vortex grenade from earlier. Once we get those volatile rounds, we'll be able to proc Echo of Cessation. Defeating volatile targets creates a Void Breach. Essentially, we will be able to make large amounts of Void Breaches. Now, when we pick up those Void Breaches, we get Devour. We also get Devour from picking up Orbs of Power. Now, this is very important because it works really well with our weapon. Me in particular, I am using a Hollow Denial Trace Rifle because it rolls with Lead from Gold and Repulsor Brace. Lead from Gold is really great for keeping that special ammo reserves up, and Repulsor Brace is really good because every time we get a kill on someone who is Void debuffed, it gives us a full Overshield. Now if we go back to our super for a second, we are proccing Volatile rounds very easily, and every time we kill someone with Volatile, we spawn a Void Breach, which gives us Devour. So our weapon will give us an overshield every time we kill someone, and if that void overshield were to ever go down for some reason, we have Devour to fall back on as an extra. Now, stopping here for a second, let's talk about weapons and artifact mods. So for weapons, as I said earlier, Hollow Denial with Repulsor Brace is a really great option. If you don't have that, then any Void weapon will work. Obviously, Repulsor Brace makes it work a lot better, although the Wave Splitter is also doing very well this season, so if you don't have a weapon with Repulsor Brace, you may want to check that out. If not, again, any Void weapon will do the job. I'm using the Retrofit Escapade as a heavy weapon as well for the same reason. It is a void weapon, and it is also not too bad for DPS, especially with how often we are proccing volatile rounds. Now, let's talk about artifact mods for a second. This build is during Season of the Defiance, and so our artifact mods will make this build work a little bit better. If you are watching this after Season of the Defiance is over, then you can skip this part and go right over to armor mods. But to start with our artifact mods, we have authorized mods Void. This just decreases the cost of all of our Void related mods. Secondly, we have Volatile Flow. This mod is really good because it allows us to gain volatile rounds much easier by picking up an Orb of Power. Now we will gain volatile rounds every time we gain Devour. We also have Shatter Orbs just because if you're in an activity that has Void Shields, this can be really interesting to like a great way to create Orbs of Power. It's not strictly necessary. Next we have Bricks from Beyond. This mod makes the build from good to amazing. This will basically spawn heavy ammo every time you, well, not every time, but it will have a high chance of spawning heavy ammo when you get kills with void weapons. And this is amazing because with lead from gold on our trace rifle, it allows us to keep our special ammo reserves always topped up, so we don't need to use armor mods like Special Finisher or Special Ammo Finder. Finally, we have Void Weapon Channeling. This will allow us to do just a little bit of extra damage with our Void Weapons, and so it makes it just that much easier to kill targets in a timely manner. Now let's get into our armor mods. So to start with, let's look at the helmet. We have two Void Siphon mods and a third mod which can be used for something like Ashes to Assets. Ashes to Assets is great because you are going to be getting grenade kills to proc Volatile initially, and so that will give you a little bit of super energy. You can also substitute it for another Void mod to increase the potency of your Orbs of Power that you do make. Next on our arms, we have a Focusing Strike mod, as well as two Bolstering Detonation mods. The bolstering detonations are again so to keep our ability energy up at all times, and the focusing strike mod is just so that we have better class ability. Um, on the off chance that we do damage with our smoke bomb, focusing strike will allow us to keep that class ability up just a little bit more as well. One thing to also take note of here, if you do not have 100 discipline, then I would recommend putting on a Font of Focus mod to grant an extra 30 discipline to whatever your stat total currently is. Strength is not strictly necessary because we are using Gambler's Dodge in order to refund our dodge ability, so Font of Vigor is not strictly necessary. Finally, I will also say, try to stay away from the kickstart mods, or just yellow mods in general, because these will consume all your stacks of armor charge, and so if you are using a font mod or a weapon surge mod, like we will talk about in a second, that could be a bit detrimental. Now, getting into our chest plate, I personally am using the Omnioculus because I like to have that extra team play where you can make your teammates invisible and refund your smoke. This is overall just very useful for keeping yourself alive and keeping your teammates alive, especially in activities like Grandmaster Nightfalls. Now, if you are playing alone or if you're not really worried too much about that, then you can also switch it out for the Gyrfalcon's Hauberk. And as I said earlier, if you are using the Gyrfalcon's Hauberk, then you will likely benefit more from using Stylus Executioner than Vanishing Step. Regardless though, mods are all the same either way. You will just generally have your regular resistance mods as well as any concussive dampener or sniper damage resistance mods that you need. Again, if you do not have 100 resilience, I would recommend a Font of Endurance mod, although if you don't have 100 resilience, I would say maybe focus on getting those stat totals just a little bit higher on your armor before you jump headfirst into higher end activities. Moving on to our legs, I have two weapon surge mods. This is to make my void weapons just do a little bit more damage and just get a little bit faster at killing our enemies. Finally, I also have a stacks on stacks mod, and that just allows me to keep armor charge up more consistently. Finally, on my class item, I have two bomber mods in order to refund as much grenade energy as possible. Now, I actually recommend having a Reaper mod as well, and so I'll actually switch out one of my armor mods for a Reaper mod, and this allows you to basically make another Orb of Power after dodging. For the final mod, I have a Time Dilation mod, and this allows my armor charge to stay on longer. When my armor charge stays on longer, it allows me to keep my Void Weapon Surges going on longer. That will just allow me to do as much damage for as long as possible, and will hopefully tide me over in times where I'm not able to create orbs of power as fast. Now, now that you've seen the armor mods, let's get into some gameplay and I will show you the combat loop for this build. Alright, here I am in a Legendary Lightfall campaign mission, and now I will show you the combat loop for this build.
Oh, they're rolling out the red carpet for us.
So to start with, I am going to first proc Volatile by getting that initial kill with the grenade, and that allows me to then move on to killing targets and proccing Repulsor Brace, as well as Devour from that Orb of Power there. Now as you can see, I am tanking shots from many different targets at once, and I am able to keep myself alive quite well. In situations where you do need a little bit more range, that machine gun also comes in quite handy. In situations where Volatile does run out, you're able to go invisible and dive right in to grab more Orbs of Power using the artifact mods. Now as you can see, the Retrofit Escapade also does fine for DPS against tankier targets, and so it is still a very viable option both for ad clear and DPS. As you can see, this build has just amazing survivability between infinitely proccing Devour and having very easy access to Void Overshield. Moreover, you can also do DPS to harder targets using the Retrofit Escapade, while also, again, proccing Devour and Volatile rounds along with killing enemies and spawning more Void Breaches. Overall, this build is very fun to use and very easy to take advantage of in higher tier content. The footage here, again, was shown in a Legendary Lightfall mission. However, this build has been tested in even harder activities like the Master Raid. I have done multiple runs of the challenge as well as multiple runs of Nezarec on Master difficulty using this build, and I have had no problems with it. Go ahead and give it a try and let me know what you think about it in the comments below. If you wind up using this build, go ahead, give it a like, and subscribe and turn on notifications if you want to see a Strand build that I have coming out soon. See you all in the next one.